night. We have said the words to the line, and you'll start in the middle of the line, the Hanes, Humevchinas Remus, or insert, this is 5 lines from the top. So, he's saying that there is, that just as there is ayin in the ani, there is ani in the ayin. And where do we see this ani in the ayin? Last time we discussed, in general, this whole phenomenon. In the moshel, where is the ani in the ayin? What does it mean, ani and ayin and so forth? Now we'll try and understand it, what the Rebbe is saying over here. That in the ayin, which means in the ha'ora, what comes through into teva, into the world, there is the element of ani, which means that which is l'mayla mihateva. Ani means the source, the elokus itself. Where do we see that? That comes through in the nisim shemishem shakai. There are 2 types of nisim. Nisim from Shem Havaya and nisim from Shem shakai. Nisim from Shem Havaya, there are 2 types of nisim in general. There is nisim that are obviously l'mayla mederech hateva, completely break and do away with teva, like kriyas yamsuf and things like that. Then there are nisim that clearly are nisim, but it does not break teva. It seems to be just working through in teva, like the Nes of Purim, for instance. Nes of Purim. Clearly, it was a Nes all over, through the whole period. Started from Yomim Achashverosh all the way to the end, but it is a nest that's concealed within teva. That means that within teva itself there is a union of nest. That means that within teva itself there is the elokus element, the ani. Normally we say that what comes into teva, going back to our moshel, the light, the sunlight that hits the world and makes us able to see objects, this is the light that very well fits in with the world and combines with the darkness of the world. It does not nullify the darkness, does not change the world, makes you see the world in combination with nature. It's a natural thing. So this is normally the ha'ayin. Elokus creates the world, but creates the world in a manner that is entirely worldly. Teva. Everything works according to rules of Teva. This is the ayin ha'eliki. You don't see that it's elokus. You see there is something. We understand at the seichel that it's being created, but actually it's the power of creation is completely concealed. See, the only thing you see is the nature. But the thing, that nature, we have the union of nisim. These nisim, this is the ani that is contained within the ayin, within nature itself.
So the things that are not like the miracle from like the sun coming up and down every day is just the ayin within nature, but the ani Ani is like the actual miracles that are concealed?
In this element itself, the fact that the sun comes up is part of nature. But the fact that the sun comes up on a daily basis, exactly in the same moment, totally predictably, without any change, for thousands of years, this clearly is a infant hashgacha protei. This is not nature per se. Nature is constantly changing. Did you ever see two identical waves on the ocean? Two identical leaves on a tree? There aren't. And this is repetitively exactly identical. The calendar that we use, our calendar, was calculated by Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi about approximately 2,000 years ago, to the moment. Because it's perfectly predictable. Another thing that Chassidus points out is the fact that the sun is producing, we mentioned it, the sun producing light incessantly. Incessantly means without stop. That's energy. It has to come from someplace. And energy, as it's being used, it gets used up, and no change in the sun. That is also a hidden koyach halaki. So all of that is, this is the ani within the eye. It means it is teva, but it's not teva. The teva was not left entirely to the limits of teva. The limits of teva itself would have to continuously change and reduce itself.
Is there more gradual levels to this?
Excuse me?
Is there more gradual levels?
More?
Gradual levels? Is there more levels? Like, is it going on ani and I and ani and I, and is there more? Or is this just,
There are more gradual level in the, let's say this, the repetitiveness of the sun cycle is less revealing less of the union of Elokus than the fact that the sun doesn't diminish in power. This is altogether a perplexing thing. You understand what I'm saying? This cannot be explained at all. Apiteva. So these are all different levels. And the Ness of Purim, for instance, is even more revealing the infamous.
More revealing than the sun shining?
It is more revealing than the sun shining. Why? Because the sun shining, you can ignore it. The whole world ignores it. But the rest of Purim you can't ignore. Things turning around like this on a dime. You understand? A whole nation being relegated to destruction, and then they get saved, and their enemies are destroyed. I mean, this is not a natural thing.
You're saying that the aspect of ani is more revealed in certain places, or it's just the sensitivity of the person? It's like all teva could basically put.
No, the more the union of ani, the union of ani is more revealed in certain places. The absolute truth is that there is no such thing as pure Teva. Everything in Teva has a godly significance. But it's completely camouflaged, it's complete. For example, the power of gravity, the Earth's gravitational pull. Gravity. So gravity, you say, is a natural thing, right? And you put an object and it falls down because the Earth pulls it down. Okay. But to understand this phenomenon, that there is such thing as gravitational pull, in reality, to understand it in the real sense, what does it represent? What it really represents is the fact that the Rebbe created a physical world. And in a physical world, the base is lamata, is on the bottom. So that everything that falls down, the reason it falls down is because this is its base, not because, this pulled down, this is, so to speak, a manner of identifying it in isolation as a power. But it also represents a godly phenomenon. Like we say, Ruach Odom Eila Lamayla, the spirit of man rises upwards, Ruach Abhemi Yeredes Lamata. The same thing is the Ruach, the physical object, is Yered Lamata. Because that's where its base is. So it really represents a godly phenomenon, but in much more subtle and hidden way. Okay, enough of that. So, we are on the line, 5 lines on the top. The Hanes hu mebechinas reima muzo in soif, bechinas ani. This Nes is representing the Roima Muzo Ein Sof, the supremacy of Ein Sof. That even though it is in Teva, but really it is not limited to the level to Teva. The Teva itself has an element that is superior, has a supremacy to it. So this is be'emes in bechinas ani, elo shemelubos bedarkei hateva, except that it is imbued in darkei hateva, in the pathways of teva. Liyois, why is it imbued in darkei hateva? Since this is ani, which is essentially above teva, why is it come through teva and concealed within teva? Liyois, that is because the bechinas ani hu bevchinas ayin de malchus, because the ani element has come through and ends up in the ayin of malchus. Let's discuss this for a moment. Malchus, the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya that Sfiras HaMalchus, Midas HaMalchus, this is the source of creation. The whole lineage of creation of the world, is from Midas HaMalchus. What it means is the following. There cannot exist, there cannot be anything that is not representative of godliness. Godliness is the only thing that exists. So if we find there is a world and there is teva, and you see only teva, right, nature, how can it exist? How can nature exist? Not only does it not represent godliness, but it actually conceals godliness, and sometimes it contradicts godliness. It seems to contradict godliness. It allows you to contradict godliness, to deny godliness. Or klippus, you know. And the explanation is that there is it's called a midah, it's called midas hamalchus. Malchus is how the Inyan Ha'elokus is translated and is contained outside in the world. You'll recall we spoke one time, maybe more than one time, about the traffic light. Anybody remember the traffic light analysis? You do? Were you ever privy to that? It's a natural thing. The cars are driving in different directions. Then you have to control so that they don't crash into one another. And from nature's perspective, that's all that's taking place. But if one really understands the full impact of that phenomenon, one will see that it represents a reality, not just an isolated thing to protect from crashes. A much more significant item. For one thing, instead of speaking from a negative perspective that cars shouldn't crash into one another, it provides for free movement. Who's interested to provide a free movement? Think about this. You understand what I'm saying? The movement maybe I'll step back a little bit and I'll introduce another thought for a moment, then we'll have it clearly. There are laws in this country if you drive a car and you damage anything, you're liable to pay for it. This seems to be a logical responsibility. If you drive a car and you slip, there's ice on the road, and you slip, and you hit a barricade, you hit a fence, and you break the fence, are you liable or not? You couldn't help it.
If you pay taxes, so no problem.
What?
If you pay taxes, so the government or the city,
They'll fix the fence. Anechtek you talk. You're dreaming. You're liable. You'll be sued and your insurance will have to pay, or else you'll pay yourself. There's no question about it. Although it's totally out of your control, you're totally not to be blamed for it. This is the land, the law of the land. Apitoira, you would not be liable. Apitoira, if there's something occurs and you are not guilty of any kind of negligence, then you're not liable. Huh? It's like a noinus or whatever. You're not liable. Maloi lasis, mahavaloi lasis. He's not liable. What's the explanation? What's the difference? Why in the world logic says, yes, you damaged my fence, pay it, fix it. And Apitoira is saying, no, he's not liable. He didn't do it intentionally, and it happened by accident, out of his control, and he's not liable. What's the difference? The difference is as follows. It's not the perspective of the world. You're driving. It's your own choice to drive or not to drive. Nobody asked you to drive. You're driving because you wanted to drive. Who cares if you stayed home? Nobody cares. So if you drive, you've taken on the responsibility that anything happens as a result of the driving, you have to pay for it. Apitoira, it's a completely different situation. Every human being has a duty in the world. And if I'm driving, it is because I'm going to fulfill my duty as a human being. I can't stay home. If I stay home, I'm not fulfilling my duty. That the Torah, the Rebbe put upon me. I have to go, Yetz Odom Lefol, everybody has to go out on a daily basis to work and do his thing in the world. So therefore, when I'm going, I'm not isolated. I'm not going by exclusively because of my own choice. I'm going because by virtue of God's mission to every individual person, we all have to go. So I'm on a mission. So if during fulfilling my mission there was an accident, I can be liable. You follow the difference? Just an idea. So what is this telling us? There is a positive element, not just a negative element, to prevent accident. It's a positive element. People have to go. From a perspective of an individual, if you drive and I drive, as far as I'm concerned, you could stay home. But as far as the country is concerned, you shouldn't stay home. I have to provide for free movement in order to develop commerce, in order to develop all the city activities. You understand? This is Pshat Malchus. There is an overall reality that's taking place. It's not just every individual unto himself. An overall reality that your movement and my movement are interrelated. You have to move because of your reason, I have to move because of my reason, but not my individual, your individual, but as part of as citizens of this city.
I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what the mashal is. I mean, certainly such an idea exists on Milam and Malchus.
What?
Certainly such an idea exists above Malchus, that there's an idea that there's an absolute reality and everything above Malchus is
No, that exists. That is where Malchus is. Above Malchus, there are no multiple things. Multiplicity, that there is you and I, that exists only in Malchus.
I'm saying Elam Hazeh.
Yeah, through Malchus. In order to reveal the Malchus, you have to have multiplicity. Mitzad the other spheres doesn't need much multiplicity.
So Malchus is like dependent.
What?
Malchus is like dependent. Sphere.
No, Malchus is not dependent. Malchus is the full revelation of everything that is all possibilities. That's Malchus, Gilui. Just like Malchus, the moshel for Malchus is Dibur. What is Dibur? Dibur is the very end of the entire development of the entire system. Before that, before Dibur, everything is united in perfect unity. A thought is just a nakuda, a truth, an interest. What does it become? A structure composed of many letters and words going in every direction. Like even as we are discussing, I want to explain something, step back, go to something else in order to bring it in. In Dibur, everything has to be developed, in full. That's Malchus. So, in this Malchus, which is the creation element, the ayin, this is the ayin of Malchus. Within this ayin, there is the ani. And essentially it represents the Melech. Ultimately, the Malchus is not only providing for multiplicity, like in our example, on cars running in every direction. Cars running in every direction is not just providing for many cars going in every direction, but actually this is part of the glory of the country, that there is such development. Essentially, this is the Melech. The greater the Melech, the more variations there are.
And the ani aspect is the ultimate reality, which is represented by the traffic light, that we see people need to go somewhere, and we see that someone is concerned that everything is moving smoothly and that there's no conflict in the different...
Well, no, that's still the ayin. The ani, it's true, I hear what you're saying. This is a very fine line over there. Providing for all the movement is still the ayin. This is part of the teva. The reason for providing for all the movement and the glory that it represents, this is the ani. When this city failed in cleaning up the streets, it was an embarrassment for the city, not just the inconvenience for the citizens. Is it a city? Is there anything happening here? What do you mean something? You got stuck. So you got stuck. No, is anything happening? Is it for real? Right? City without a mayor. A headless city. That's what happens. What if the mayor came up and said, okay, everyone should clear their own street? Is that a city? You know who stands to lose most when the businesses close? The city. Okay, so now we understand this terminology there. Elo shemelubosh b'darkei hateva. Okay, you see what I going back to the previous line. Except, even though this is the ani, but this ani is melubosh b'darkei hateva, in the pathways of teva. Why is it melubosh b'darkei hateva? Why doesn't it come out frontally and say, hey, this is how it's supposed to be? The bechinas ani, it is because that this bechinas ani, who's bechinas ayin the malchus. Because this ani is contained within the ayin of malchus. Malchus is the ani, but represented on the ayin level. Malchus provides, as I said, for multiplicity. Elo, I'm sorry. Avol ein zeh. However, but we have to understand, ein zeh, this is not more, but rak shehateva kesibo el hanes. It is only that the teva is the sibo, the cause for the nes. The teva provides for this nes to come into being. V'hanes hu l'mayla min hateva be'etzem. But the nes itself is essentially above teva. Like you're taking the nes for Purim. The nes for Purim is like this. Hundreds of different details coordinated in a very interesting ways. As for instance, the Melech stepped out of the party, went into his garden. He comes back, Haman is sitting by Esther. And the Melech immediately became jealous. Where do you come to sit, on Esther's seat? So, this is like almost an inadvertent occurrence. That everything came to cooperate. What is the essence behind it? The essence behind it is l'mayim ha'tev. What is the essence? The essence is that this thing has to be resolved. Eden have to come out above. And therefore, in any situation, that element will show up. Haman has to drown and Mordechai has to rise up. So this is mamash l'mayim ha'tev. Why does Haman have to drown and Mordechai has to rise? It's not a tabistic thing. This is a completely different thing. It's a mitzad ani. But it comes through b'darkei hatav, because it is through malchus. It grabs onto darkei hateva, to the pathways of teva. V'lozois, and thus, mipnei shehahamshocho hu b'vchinas malchus, because of the hamshoch of this nes is in the element of malchus. And malchus, as we said, this is the final sphere that expresses and megala everything, and there's multiplicity. Lochein yesh bozeh inyan hagbala. This is why there is within this the inyan of hagbala, or the inyan of a limit. What is the hagbala element? The hagbala element is that the teva is not purged. Teva remains Teva. And but still, tzorich liyes ha'hamshocha ha'ashpoa bevitur. But still, the hashpoa, even though there's hagbola, it's all within teva. But the hashpoa within teva is bevitur. Bevitur means with grace, with richness. Vitur is mavata, means beyond the limit. Sheharei hoyiker hu ha'amshochem mebchinas keser. Since that, in principle, this is hamshocha from the keser of Malchus, the hainu b'chinas ani. The keser, this is the ani shemeir b'Malchus. The ani that comes through into Malchus, shehu b'li gvul, which is in essence b'li gvul, k'mei sheyizboir, as will be explained. The union of Malchus, of a Melech, even though the Melech provides and recognizes, so to speak, a whole country and many different people with different professions and different interests and so forth, but it all represents the keser of the Melech. In other words, it all goes up to the essence of what the Melech stands for. This is going to be discussed, but I want that we should understand it as we go through. So it's keser, this is the ha-keser, the ani shemei b'malchus. The principle of a melech, of malchus, what is the function of a melech? In this country, we don't have a melech. The country runs on the basis of when people agree to form a government. It's called a self-government. People govern on their own. Self-government. So in this self-government, the government has a very limited function. Like the government does not provide for moral standards, or like a government does not mix into religion or anything like that, because it cannot involve itself in essential, in deeper in elements, only on the practical level. Security, providing for commerce, free commerce, that people should be able to conduct businesses without conflict and things like that. But that's it. In terms of the value of human life, the government is not involved in that. That is established individually, and they have a community. All people have their own standard. But the union of a malchus, a melech, the union of a melech is that the melech actually provides. The Rambam says, what is the union of a melech? That the principal function of a melech Yisrael is lechazek das ha'emes, is to make sure that Torah is observed. This is the principal function of a melech. So the melech actually provides and represents the principle of this nation, what this nation is about. Not just to provide services. This principle, this is called the Kesser. Just like a Kesser, a crown, goes above the head, it encircles the head. This is the Kesser Malchus. This is the glory of this nation. This is what the nation stands for. This is why there is this nation, why it exists, what its principles are. This is the inspiration of this nation, the spirit that makes everything go. So this Kesser, this is the Ani, this is the essence of the Melech. And then it develops further and goes into actual Malchus, into the practical element of Malchus, to provide for all the needs of its citizens and so forth, but all for this purpose. So this is the ayin that is contained within the Ani of Kesser. So there are two elements in this. On the one hand, this is it's limited. It allows for the teva to function the way teva is. But on the other hand, it actually represents that which is completely above teva, Kesser, the principle that is completely beyond limit. Okay, so this is what we learned in this couple of lines here. K'mei Yizboir. The Ani itself is Bli Gvul. What does Bli Gvul mean? Bli Gvul means, this is like the Kesser. This is that element that is the reason for it all, that provides for the essence why this exists. This is the Bli Gvul, it's in the essence itself. Practically speaking, it goes down into Malchus, and there are all kinds of different rules that make it possible to operate and all that. That is already in a finite and limited manner. But what's behind it? Behind it is an inyan of Ani. Ani means this must be. There is an element, a reason for this that is beyond your understanding. A reason for that, that's the Melech himself. This is why within the country, the smallest infraction, rebellion against the king, is punishable by capital punishment. Because rebellion against the king is not just this infraction on this level of Malchus. It touches all the way into the Kesser, into the Ani. Just like Rahman al-Islam, if a person has an infection, there's certain types of infections, and a person has diabetes, Rahman al-Islam. And if it gets infected, and it cannot be cured with antibiotics or anything like that, and if it left alone, this infection will spread throughout the body, eventually hit the brain, and kill the person. So what's done? Amputate. Because it attacks, if anything that attacks the brain gets amputated. It's a big loss. But how can you attack the brain? This is the real thing. All right. Okay, so this is the Anisha Meir B'Malchus, and it comes Bevitur, Hashpo Bevitur. Bevitur means with grace, with sort of not with strict limit. V'lochein tzorich li'ez hansino lemato, gam kim bevitur. Since that this comes from the keser, from the ayin, this is why it has to come down lamato also, bevitur, in this open and gracious, quote unquote, unlimited way. Bevitur. Vitur. Vitur means
No.
not with strict with restrictions. Restrictions means limits.
In Hebrew, it's like levater.
Levater, yeah.
So it's like give over. So
Yeah.
what does it mean that?
It's more, Vitur means more than the Teva itself.
So
Demands.
Not
Not limited to
give
Teva.
up to the miracle.
That's right. The reason that it comes with Vitur is because this ayin, the Teva, is actually representative of the Ani that's in Keser. You understand this correlationship here?
And this idea that it comes with Vitor, this is the nace.
This is the nice. This shows the supremacy that's contained in this Teva. Okay, let's pursue this further. V'hinei v'chinas ayin hakol bani. This ayin that we said, that there is ayin that is kol bani, that is included in the ani. And essentially what this means, that there is oir in the etz, oir hakol b'hoetz, as we discussed yesterday and Monday. Yodua, it's known, shehu ha'oir, oir ein soif, that this refers to, this ayin hakol b'ani is the oir ein soif, k'moi shehu be'atzmusoi, as the oir ein soif is in its original state within the etzem itself, be'atzmusoi, in his essence, lifnei tzimtzum harishon, before the first tzimtzum. And I'll discuss this in a few moments. Shalzen Emar, where regarding this madrego it says, Ad shaloi nivra ha'olam, that before, up until the time the world was still not created, before the world was created, Ho-yo-hu ushmoi bilvat. There was he and his name. Bilvat, only he and his name. That's all there was. The Pirush Ad Shelo Nivra Ha'olam, where the meaning of the word before the world was created, Asher Nivra Ha'olam Hainu Koidem HaTzimtzum. That refers to the Dalregiat before the Tzimtzum. So before the Tzimtzum it says, Asher Nivra Ha'olam Hu Ushmoi. There was essentially just he. But within he there is Shmoi, there is his name. This is the Oir HaKol B'Atzmus, as we're going to see.
Shmoy is an external factor from who, right?
What?
Shmoy is an external factor regarding who.
Right. Um, Lifnei HaTzimtzum, the principle of before the Tzimtzum. What is the Tzimtzum? What is before the Tzimtzum? The Tzimtzum per se is an element where the Tzimtzum did not take away anything. It only, so to speak, restrained and contracted the Gilui so that it would be possible to reveal it in an organized fashion. This is a Tzimtzum. Like in a person's, you have an idea. You've seen something, and you saw a phenomenal thing, which is of enormous significance, enormous beauty, whatever it is, and you saw it in one at a glance. You saw the whole thing. How are you going to describe it? If you're going to say, "Oh, it was so glorious," you're not giving anything. You're just telling how you experienced it. You're not revealing anything. To reveal something, you have to kind of restrain, hold back your own excitement, and focus into what you saw and what is the impression that it made on you, and reproduce it in an organized and a limited fashion. Organized means first things first and then second and so forth. If you're going to describe, let's say, a beautiful palace, you can't say it was beautiful. You have to start saying there was a house, a building. You have to start from something very fundamental, very basic. And from that you can go and develop and say what there was in it. And in order to do that, you have to be metzamtzem. You have to restrain your own thoughts, your own impression, your own experience of it, your own thoughts of it, and excitement. And then you're able to produce it piecemeal in an organized way so that it can be also transmitted to someone who didn't see it. So this is the moshel for the Inyan. What actually nivra ha'olam and then mishu nivra ha'olam. When the world was created, in order to create the world, it had to have been a tzimtzum. Because what is world? By definition, world means that there is an order, a teva. Teva means that there is a first, a second, and a third. You can't get to the third without going through the first and the second. You can't have everything at once. Anything that comes at once is not world. Like we say, how do you drink? You don't jump into the lake to drink. You can drink by jumping into the lake. You have to take a cup of water. And even when you take the cup of water, you can't just throw it down your throat. You have to sip it piecemeal, swallow by swallow. Even though you're going to swallow the entire cup, but you can't swallow it at once. It has to go through a process. In order to do that, you have to restrain it, so that it's possible to put it through a straw. But before the world was created, there was no need for this restraint. There was full glory, full revelation of a godly oyer. The entire reality. So this is actually Nivra Ha'olam Ha'yahu U'Shmoi Bilvat. That's before the Tzimtzum. Before the Tzimtzum, Okay, we'll discuss it now. I'm going to explain the Inyan of Shmoy. But essentially, Shmoy means his name.
A name you need for somebody, and before it seems to me.
There's nobody there to give a name. Okay. But nevertheless, why you need a name is a separate question, but it's his name, even if you say it's given for somebody, but a name is referencing, is referring to some element of the person. A name, even though by us it seems our names are arbitrary, but in reality they're not arbitrary. The names are representative, actually, as it says, the way the neshama is mislabish in the guf. In English, it's just called a cup. And that is entirely conventional. Somehow he developed that this was called a cup. But in Lashon Kodesh, the names of objects are true names that are related to the object itself. So a name has a true relationship to the thing that it's applied to. Like Odom is Adam el-Elyon. Odom, it's called Odom because he reflects the way things are l'mayla. Dimion shel mayla. So when you say Hu Shmoy, means that this is the Shem by which the Rebbe himself is, so to speak, is described or called. Which means it's something which is fully describing himself.
To who, to himself?
That's a separate question. That we'll see, why there is a Shem. So, but to explain the Inyan, this is the Ayin Shebe'ani.
The name.
Right. It is Ayin, but it reflects the Ani. And with this, we'll take a recess.
A long recess.
No, till Monday. have a chance to reflect on all these things that we said. You have notes?
Is there a difference between Kesser and Atara?
Torah?
Kesser and Atara.
Torah? No, it's the same thing. Okay.